Alright, so hi everyone. Once again, I hope this is finding everyone safe and well. And I want to thank you again for your continued effort through this crazy semester we've been having that's almost over now. So today we're finishing up our unit on the living environment by taking a look at a paper that was written by a scientist working within the South African National Park System. And this paper, it gives us a concrete example of the sort of dilemma that Sagoff, who we looked at on Monday, was concerned with, where the humane treatment of animals conflicts with ecological concerns. And we started this unit off by looking at Peter Singer, who argued that those very same principles that cause us to give all human beings the same moral consideration, by those very same principles, were obligated to extend the same moral concern to any living thing that has the ability to suffer. Then we looked at Francione, who thought that Singer wasn't going far enough, because Singer still to an extent values human life more than animal life, because he argued that a human being's life is worth more to them than an animal's is to that animal, which is something that Francione disagreed with. Francione argued that all creatures value their lives in the same way. Then we read Steinbach, who thought that Singer was taking things a bit too far, and that humans deserve more moral consideration than animals do, because our greater intelligence and rationality mean that we can be morally responsible agents in ways that animals cannot, and that counts for something. What these authors did have in common is the idea that animals have the negative right not to suffer from human cruelty. Francione would say that we should never harm other living things. Singer would say that we should do so only under very special circumstances, and Steinbach sort of agrees with Singer, although she allows for a much larger range of circumstances that might call for harming animals. McMahon took Singer's idea and extended it, arguing that of course animals deserve these negative rights, but once we admit a concern with animal suffering, we can't just stop with not hurting them. They also have a claim to security for having harm done by others being prevented. This leads McMahon to suggest that if it would be possible, we'd want to create a world in which there's no predators and only creatures living in peace with one another. Now to some this sounds amazing. This is a world without violence, suffering, or fear for any being. But some might object that even if you could imagine being able to do this with no ecological disaster or no ecological problems, a world without lions or wolves or tigers, out in nature doing their thing like they've done for millions of years, this would just be a much poorer world. And somehow it might just seem disrespectful to remake nature in this way. So Sagoff continued on this theme, but he's coming from the other side. He's like opposite of McMahon. He noted that if we really take the idea of positive rights for non-humans seriously, this would mean doing things like not only doing away with predation, but providing food and shelter, and the end result of this can only be the end of nature as we know it, or the destruction of nature as we know it. But we don't even have to go this far. There's often going to be cases where a desire to treat animals humanely is going to conflict with keeping nature intact. For instance, when we have to decide how to handle cases of animal overpopulation or invasive species, where the only really practical thing to do is often to kill animals in large numbers if we want to keep the ecosystem as it is. So Whyte, today's author, he's concentrated on a specific case like this concerning the elephant population in a single national park in South Africa. To put things concisely, the elephant population is growing rapidly, and the only way to control it seems to be through calling or killing members of that population. But while the paper focuses mostly on the specifics of what's going on as far as the dynamics of the different animal populations involved, and why methods like birth control are impractical, there's a lot of very difficult philosophical questions here that we have to answer. Elephants, they're these large, charismatic animals, and even people who are not particularly concerned with animal welfare have some reservations about having them killed, especially killing them regularly in large numbers. On the other hand, a large elephant population is going to have a tremendous effect on other animals that depend on the vegetation that elephants consume in such large quantities, and this can drive those species to starvation or even to extinction. So we have to answer the question of why we should be more concerned with the welfare of elephants than smaller mammals or birds. But the growing elephant population, it's a natural problem. It's not linked to human activity, at least in any way that scientists like Whyte are aware of. So this adds this added complicated question of why should we intervene in nature? Kruger, where Whyte works, it's a place, Kruger National Park, it's a place of unique biological diversity, and visitors describe its natural beauty in like spiritual terms. It's this amazing place. But possibly one might argue, then that allowing elephants to destroy its natural balance, this would be like an immoral act in the same way that filling in the Grand Canyon or paving over Yosemite National Park would be. But you still have to ask this question, why should we stop natural changes from occurring? Ecosystems change over time, and maybe in a way by trying to keep that park frozen in time, we're interfering with nature in the same sort of way that McMahon is advocating for, but people like Sagoff and Leopold are against. So there's a lot of things to be considered here. You have the right of the elephants not to be harmed. You have the welfare of the population of smaller animals who are competing with the elephants for food. You have what the role of human beings should be in preserving nature. And of course, you have the economic realities of the park and of those human populations that live nearby. So think about these issues, stay safe and healthy, and I'll see you next week as we finish up this course.